Hey everybody, welcome back to Advanced Kayak Angler. Appreciate you tuning in. I had a good weekend this weekend. It was great. Fished the Coleman Kayak Anglers event up on Ingram's tiny little lake, 22 people. Ended up in second. It was a four fish limit. I had 77 and a half, which was awesome. My buddy Chuck beat me with 78. Anytime you can catch fish, two of the four fish I had were on top water, and the water, and it's only 58 degrees. Because really, the reason I even went to top water is because you got 22 people on a little bitty lake. I just wanted to do something completely different than anybody else, so I thought top water, and I threw a big giant top water. So just trying to get some big bites, and yeah, it worked out. Had a great time. And congrats, Case Wallace. He caught 23 out there, which that lake's got some good fish for sure. But to catch 23 with so much pressure and so many people fishing, that's a big accomplishment. So yeah. Well, like I said, I appreciate you watching. This week we have John Thomas from YakGadget. I'll go ahead and bring him on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to bring you on, just talk about YakGadget. I've been on the team a couple of years now, and um, it's funny. Like, it seems like I tell some people about YakGadget, and then they're like, I think almost everybody knows YakGadget, and then every now and then I hear somebody doesn't. I'm like, bruh, like you can go to my YouTube page. My kayak, I just did a walkthrough of my kayak, and I have so many YakGadget products. I mean, I'm on the team, but I thought about bringing you in whenever I did that video, because it's like I got so many, so much stuff on my kayak that you make. It would like things that I really like that nobody else makes anything like that. That it would be, I would have a different kayak without your product. So first, I just really appreciate the stuff that you make. But how did all this get started? How did you get into the kayak kind of accessories industry? How did all this happen?
Well, Dan, first of all, man, thank you for saying that. It means everything when I hear that. You know, it's one of those things where with me, you know, I didn't think it would even get to this point, to be honest with you, because I think when I got into kayak fishing like 7.5 years ago, and I caught a fish off of a kayak and I just fell in love with it. And
Me too.
I kind of decided I was going through a midlife crisis. I was kind of, I don't know, getting burned out. I was a graphic designer for like 30, not quite 30 years, but I'd been doing it for quite a long time. And it gotten to a point where I was just kind of like, I'm out. I think I was out on the water one morning. It was like a Wednesday, and I kind of it was on our lake here in Middle Tennessee with Percy Priest Lake, which is a really large
Mhm.
lake. It's about 70 miles lake, but in Smyrna where I live, I was out there and I was almost virtually by myself, and I was kind of thinking, I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life, but I know I wanted to be involved with this. I just felt peace. I
Wow.
really just liked doing it, and I fell in love with kayak fishing to the point where I started kind of analyzing things that I wish I had while I was out on the water, and things that either didn't exist or things that I felt like weren't done a certain way, or they were outside of a price range where I kind of thought that I kind of thought that it was either too expensive, or I kind of felt like there was a certain range of prices that were being ignored in the industry. And I kind of thought, I know I could draw these parts because I've been drawing on a computer for, since I think 1989. And so I was like, I think I could see if it's even possible for me to possibly design some of these parts myself and kind of see how I should go about it. And then I got into kind of learning as I went along, manufacturing, because I had never done manufacturing before.
Yeah.
I'd owned another company, a graphic design, web design, and building web-based applications. I've owned that company for over 20 years, and it's been pretty successful. And I thought, well, I kind of designed products already because I designed, all these different pieces of web software and stuff. And so I just took my time with it and just kind of learned how to take some of these ideas and turn them into reality and learned how to build. Um, I did some building when I was a kid. You know, my dad was in construction and kind of learned some of that stuff, but then just kind of uh, started learning, you know, CNCing and different types of production using different types of machines, wet jet, CNCs, things like that. And you know, started talking to some different people and just started kind of locating different materials and just kind of figuring out how to make some of this stuff and turn it into reality. And lo and behold, I got my first, you know, CNC router and just started making parts. And then it just kind of took off from there. And I had done branding, you know, my whole career. So I created the brand. I registered for the name.
Great, great logo, and I mean, it is obviously what you did for a long time. But
Yeah, man.
all the logos and all the graphic design is like real nice.
I appreciate it, man, I really
Yeah.
do. Yeah, that was a thing where I kinda felt like the power of what we do has to be kind of shown in a brand. I think if it looks real, people they already consider it like above other brands, you know, if it looks the part. We've you know, I worked for advertising agencies. I was a trained designer. I had worked in different parts of the country. I'm from Tennessee, but I worked in California, Los Angeles, and Boston for a little bit. And so
Well,
I had experience, you know, working for large agencies. So we knew the power of brand. And if we could like if you know, so if I could get a good name and I started researching names and then naturally, you know, I searched for the web addresses first before I registered the name because I wanted to see if I could find a good, quick, you know, name with a .com behind it, and that took quite a while. And then when I came up with YakGadget, I purchased that I think in 2017, and which was almost 2 years before I started the company officially. So I had that name in my back pocket, and then started playing around with logos and stuff. So by the time we went forward as a company, I already had the name, I already had the URL, already had some things in place. So it kind of you know, it kinda launched from there, and I think what really happened was people started to grab onto the name and, started to kinda check out what we were able to come up with. We originally started out making motor mounts because
mhm.
that was the thing that I knew that I could do right away, and I had gone to ICAST in 2018, and I was working on another project called the prop pod, and we were making like prop pod based motors for different kayaks that allowed you to have pods in there, you know, like
Yeah.
bona fides or big fit, the three waters big fish, or
Mhm.
you know, ones like that. And then quickly kind of started learning lessons right away at ICAST. And as I approached some of these guys, and trying to get, you know, some different type of wholesale deals and things like that with some of the manufacturers, and kind of learned how the industry operated like really early. And it was kind of a closed off industry. Like I was like this new guy, and I think you kind of have to earn your stripes in the industry. So I got a lot of no's at first, and I think what happened was,
But was that just because they didn't want you making a product for their platform,
well, I think
or just you
yeah,
relationship?
I think it had something to do with that, and also, if they don't know who you are and
Yeah.
you haven't been around for a while, it just takes a while to kinda earn credibility with those guys. And now I look back on it now and it totally makes sense, but back then it kinda didn't to me. It was and I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of discouraging at first, but then I realized what was really going on. And I think to your point that you made, it just kinda you know, it kinda took me aback. And so I was sitting it's kinda funny, but I was sitting in the one of the little commissary areas of ICAST where you could, like, get some food or sit down, and it was like a little coffee shop in there. And I remember talking to, Charles Adams, who was with me, at the time. Met actually, he was there by himself, but I met up with him, and we were talking, and I said, instead of trying to make these pod-based motors, how about I just make these motor mounts that either mounts on the rear of the kayaks or goes into the pod, and that way people can put whatever motor they want to put on them, and then I'm just an aftermarket company. And initially he wanted to be a part of it, and was for a little while, but that's where YakGadget really started.
Oh,
Like,
okay. So like, so you were trying to make products that they would sell under their name as like a parts manufacturer for them.
well, I knew if we were trying to make motors per se, we were like, we needed the pods, there were so many things that we needed, and in order to do it, I mean, we were buying all that stuff at retail price, to be honest, at first, and then was putting them together. Again, I didn't know anything about manufacturing,
Yeah.
so I was buying that stuff, and then I knew going to ICAST, I tried to make relationships so I could get some wholesale deals, so I could get wholesale deals on the pods, on the motors, and different things like that. And those guys kind of at first, it just it wasn't going as successful as I thought it would, and that's when I kinda just I start sketching. I had a napkin there, and I start sketching on a napkin about, a motor mount that I wanted to make, and it was gonna be a pod-based motor mount where it was like, oh, you could just, slap a $99 Walmart trolling motor on it, and it would virtually do the same thing as prop pod would, but it would actually be a lot cheaper for me to make, and then I could then get wholesale deals with the materials people a lot easier than I could getting wholesale deals with the kayak companies. So I was like, hey, we'll just be an independent aftermarket, kayak accessories company. And Yak Gadget kind of had the name because I had another company. It was called Prop Pod by Yak Tools. And I said, hey, I'll get rid of that. I'll kill that. And then I'll just bring YakGadget, the name YakGadget, that brand online, and then that could just really branch out to a whole
Everything.
plethora. Yeah, it could be everything related to kayaks. Like I wasn't limited by motors, but motors is kind of where we started. And there were a couple other people out there making stuff, but we were Kevin Dismuke was one of them, but then it was us, and then there wasn't really.
Yeah, and he fell off. He doesn't make
Yeah.
anything anymore.
Yeah, I haven't I don't know. At first I was, it's like I knew Kevin for a little bit. We had talked, online a couple times, but and then One Objective kind of came around, but they
Mhm.
kind of came around a little bit after we did, but we were kind of both kind of budding at the same time, it seemed. But so as we started kind of making the motor mounts, rear and pod based motors, then we got into anchor systems, and it really branched from there. And I think what happened was that we had the motor mounts, we had the anchor systems by like this summer of 19. So about a year later, we had some things in place, and we were making some stuff for Bixby. We had started a relationship with them, and we were at the 2019 ICAST. And what it was kind of cool to see, because a lot of the no's that I had gotten the year before, they were starting to become maybes or yeses.
All right.
And yeah, so again, it was kind of a thing where they were they were saying, okay, so this guy's back, he's staying in it, and he's growing, and he's making some cool things. And it was much different in terms of how we were received. And I think again, it goes back to, when you get in the industry, I think a lot of these people, they get mobbed with a lot of people that want to do this. And then when they see someone actually take the risk, and they
Yeah.
see someone actually put themselves out there the way that they put themselves out there, then I don't know if it's respect, but I think it's part of that, but I also think it's like, okay, this guy's in it. He's serious. And so it's almost like I felt like, you kind of had to prove yourself, if you will. And I had went in hook, line, and sinker at that point. I think once we got around into that, that first full year of being established, it became my full-time gig. Like, it wasn't a
Uh,
part-time hustle. I had basically stepped out of my other company. My wife started running it full time, which she does a tremendous job. Still has that other company today, and she
Awesome.
runs that. Well, that gave me some freedom, and it also had some money stocked away for me to be able to kind of, you know, be able to sacrifice, if you will, the time that I needed to be able to really get this thing off. So what kind of happened from there was, I think from the fall of 19 to like mid, the early 2020, started just making a whole lot more stuff than just the anchor systems and the motor mounts. It really started getting into storage. Started getting the track mounted accessories, and it really started just igniting at that point, which I kind of planned that. Like, I knew that what would make us be different than other companies was we had to have a lot of SKUs, because some of these parts that we were making, we started with motor mounts and anchor systems, and where I'm going with that is we learned how different all these different kayaks were.
Yeah.
And so we really had to be that company that was tackling that, because other companies weren't. And so when we started making track mounted accessories, it gave us more objectivity, I think. Like, we began to kind of look at things different because we had been around all these other boats. Music City Outdoors in Nashville really, they really kind of went out of their way to help me, and had basically started my company under their roof. Like, I had I because I needed a place to work, and they had some warehouse space that was attached to their building,
Hmm.
and where they stored kayaks. And so they ended up cutting me out about 900 square feet, and I started, you know, you know, building parts there, and I had access to all these different boats that they carried. So, from Old Town to Vibe to, Three Waters, Big Fish, and then um, once Hook One, unfortunately, Hook One went out of
Yeah.
business, and that was
That's still so sad.
it was, and I
Yeah.
was there. I was there when they had opened the doors for the sale. I was there
I
because
drove
Hook
up
One,
there for it.
yeah, and Hook One was one of my dealers at that time when that went down in 2020, and it was like going to a funeral, man. It was
Yeah.
just, but then once what happened there was Music City was able to pick up a lot of brands, other brand kayaks that they weren't zoned for, and they became zoned for, like Feel Free and some of the other, big brands, which ultimately led to them carrying Hobie as well. But
Yeah.
but I benefited from that because I was around these kayaks every day. So what really started to happen is, I started to come up with all these different concepts, ideas, and different things because I was around these boats all the time, and I could identify certain gaps in certain areas that, okay, this kayak could really use this, or this kayak could really use this. And that's where, we started making stuff for New Canoe, and we started making stuff for Hobie, and we started making stuff for some of these other brands that didn't always have a lot of accessories, although Hobie has a great line of their own accessories. But even within
Right.
that, I saw some gaps of some things that, hey, we could make to really bring out the power of a pro angler, or bring out the power of the Outback, or some of the other great kayaks that Hobie makes. So it really just started to become like this chain reaction of products that started to really come from there. And I think, like, once we got into 21, by the time we got, we're just talking about a 2-year period at that point. We went from having maybe 5 to 10 SKUs in 19 to having over like 60 in 21. And then from 21 to now, we've added another, gosh, 35 or 40,
Yeah.
whether it's, model specific parts, or more universal stuff for track mounted accessories, or storage accessories that are more universal. So it really just took us to a bunch of different places that, when we first started, we were just primarily targeting motors, and because of prop pod and everything. and then I just saw the potential. I saw the need, and I saw the potential, and I think that's where a lot of this stuff really came from, was me being on the water and going, man, I really wish I had this, or I really wish I had a crate I could actually access while I'm on the water, or I really wish I had a phone mount that was easy to use, or really, I just started thinking about all these different things that I wish I had. And then that's where I started writing all this stuff down, and then so when I started to learn more and started to create more relationships, and then more people wanted to work with us, then that really led to me being able to go back into that original book that I was writing this stuff down in, and go, okay, now let's handle a phone mount. Now let's attack, underneath seat storage, or now let's attack this stuff that I already had a list of, because whenever I walked around some of these kayaks, I would get there to the kayak shop early before other people would get there, and I would just walk around these different boats writing down things. Man, it doesn't have this, or it doesn't have this. This boat lets you do this, but it doesn't let you do this. So how about we make this platform to allow this boat now to offer what this other boat that's more expensive has. And that's where it kind of really started firing up all these different ideas. And sorry for being so long-winded.
No, no, this is why we're having it. It's super interesting, man. Keep going.
Yeah, man, that's kind of where all this is kind of gone to. And I think what's again set us apart is there's a lot of other accessory companies out there that make certain types of accessories, but then when you go beyond that into other areas of the kayak, they either don't make those things, or it's too specific for them. So I think that's where it sets us apart, where we kind of make, you know whether it's, want to put a motor on your kayak, or anchor system on your kayak, or anything else, we kind of make all these different things. And it's led us to be considered, competitors with some of the top leading companies in the industry, which I'm really proud of. And we've got some new stuff that we're working on coming out. I think 23 is actually going to be an exciting year for us. And again, it's becoming like what some no's used to be. Now they're becoming yeses.
Ooh.
I really saw this really killer, like, kind of a TED talk, where there was a really a, a, a really ambitious CEO that talked about, like, they were asking him how he became successful, and he said, well, when I first got into this business and doing some of the things he did, and I forget even what industry he was in, but he said, I had a lot of no's, and my goals became, instead of me focusing on the negativity of the no's or the rejection, I said, what can I do to take those no's and turn them into eventual yeses? And I just love that, because
Mm.
that's been my experience, was what I could have been really, like, you know, put off or discouraged by hearing no's, or not even hard no's, but just people kind of maybe not taking us that serious because they didn't know how serious we were.
Yeah.
And then, instead of me focusing on that negativity, I just said, you know what? It's not negative. They don't. We got to earn that trust. We got to build that. We got to let people know we're worth saying yes to. It's on us. It's not on them. There are companies, they can't take risks without knowing what you know. So how can I expect them to work with us if we haven't proven ourselves? So that's really fired me up to kind of go, okay, cool. Now my goal is to turn those no's into yeses, and that's starting to happen for us a lot more now, and it's really cool. It's really cool to see, because it's been a dream of mine since I got into this. We just wanted to make meaningful products that people could use, and try to do it at an affordable rate, and try to do it where, if you don't have this huge budget to go out and buy some of the top of the line kayaks that already have a lot of the stuff baked in, then you could buy some of our products and take the boat that you have and make it more fishable, or make it a better experience for you.
Yeah, especially like YakGadget. YakGadget, I mean, not YakGadget, I'm sorry. New Canoe has to be your favorite kayak because it's so open to do whatever. They make some of their own stuff, but you can just go wild with a new canoe.
And absolutely. And New Canoe, I've got to be honest with you, it's I have to be Switzerland, about this because we
Yeah,
make
oh yeah,
stuff
oh
for
yeah.
every brand. Like, people ask me what
Right.
my favorite brands are, and I really I have opinions on that, but I really try to keep it to myself because we do because we
For
work with
all of them. Yeah.
everyone, and
Oh
and
yeah.
there's and all these brands are great, by the way. They all make great products. I mean, like, I remember when people would come into the kayak shop when I used to be there. We moved out of there in 2021, but when I was there, people would come in and they'd ask like, "Oh, what kayak should I get?" And I'm like, "Look, whatever you pick here, you're winning. They're all great
Yeah.
brands, whether it's Crescent, whether it's Vibe, whether it's Feel Free, whether it's New Canoe, whether it's Bonafide, they're all really awesome products. But some do different things, and you got to like figure out what kind of water you fish and how you fish, and then you find the right boat that's going to fit those needs because not every boat does, and not every boat fits every need.
Yeah.
You've got to kind of identify who you are, uh, as a kayaker and as a fisherman. So getting back to New Canoe, one thing that when I started to get around them more and more, I really began to appreciate like all the work that Blake has done there.
Yeah.
And
He's a great guy too.
yeah, man. And
Yeah.
well, I've got to really quickly touch on one thing. So the guy who got me really into the New Canoe brand was a fellow by the name of Mike Smits,
Oh,
and and
yeah.
he lived in Lebanon. He wasn't far away, and I got to know him. And I remember when I first met him, I went up to him because I'd heard his story, and he really inspired me. And I went up to him. I think this had to have been in maybe 2018 or 19. It was kind of early on, and I went up to him and I said, "Man, you don't know who I am, man, but I'm a huge fan of yours." And he looked at me, he goes, "Well, hell, I don't know you yet, but I'm a fan of you too." And and just that kind of guy, and then to literally get to know him more, and then he and just to see how passionate he was about New Canoe. And I started learning about, these boats, and I knew I had to start and make products for for New Canoes, and we that's where the quick tracks kind of came. That's exactly where it came
Mm,
from. And I had actually talked to him about it, and he had come by the shop to, and he actually brought his his kayaks, his personal fleet of New Canoes, and brought them. And I actually like built like the first, different versions of the quick tracks based on the boats that he brought me. And so he helped me in developing the quick tracks, and when we put them out there, uh, it just blew up. I mean, we just did we we've had a couple of experiences where we've made products and we sat them out, to the public. We've launched them, and some have been more popular than others. But when we launched those quick tracks for the Frontiers and for the Flints and for the Pursuits, the Unlimited hadn't been out there yet. That product just ignited. It just took off, and Mike had everything to do with that. And so he became a really great friend of mine, and just really loved that guy. And when I found out about his passing, I was actually working at the East Tennessee show that weekend, and yeah, it tore me up. And but then, um, a week later, I had to work the Lebanon show, and they had his funeral exactly when the Lebanon show was kind of starting. And but Blake had actually, you know uh, traveled from Florida and flew to Lebanon or to Mount Juliet, where Mike's funeral was, and he attended that funeral. So here's a guy who owns a major kayak brand, and stopped what he was doing. But that's how much Mike meant, not only to him, but also to New Canoe and to the kayak community.
yeah.
And that that really, and I know Blake wouldn't even want that to be out there in terms of, he's not doing that for any
Yeah.
type of public. He did that because he genuinely loved Mike, and he loves people, and he also, he's also been there for River Wolf as well with the stuff
Yeah.
that River Wolf had gone through with health stuff. Blake's just that kind of guy, and so he's an awesome guy. But more to the more to the point, makes a really awesome brand of boats that are modular and just really, I really have a major respect for that brand. And yeah, I mean, boats like that makes it's Candyland for me. I mean, it's Toys R Us for me because I get to look and see what we can build. But Blake's also done an incredible job with the
Yeah.
different things that he's developed. If you look those cool modular pods that
The
they
gear
have,
pod, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
those are killer. If you look at like the motor systems he's
Yeah,
come up with,
the whole EPS where
oh,
you can disconnect your pedal drive and then just add on your motor.
no, I can't think of
Yeah,
another brand that has gone the distance that he's gone to provide so many different options where you can tailor that thing to your. I think he's one of the first, and I'm not gonna say he's the only one, but he's one of the first to not look at his boats as kayaks. I think what he did was he realized, I think early in the game, that he created a platform, and that's what I think these kayaks really are to me. They're platforms where, and he kept it pretty open as far as who could put what on his boat. And I will say this, I remember being at ICAST on the demo day, and he was the only kayak out there that had a bow mounted motor. He was the first to do it. Um, and as a company, he was the first to have, and the XI3 didn't exist yet.
yeah.
But here's the funny story about that. There was these two kids in college that were there, and they both got out of college. One was a software designer, and the other guy was an actual like programmer. And they got together and they created this GPS spot lock technology. And they made a piece of hardware that went on to a remote controlled bow mounted motor, and then you could use the phone app to lock in your spots. They were the first to create that tech, and I met those two guys,
I didn't know
and
that.
I told those guys because they had a booth there at ICAST. And I told those guys, "Your technology is about to be bought, dude. Like you're the first to do this." And lo and behold, a year later, I never saw those guys again. And then all of a sudden, all the Spotlock technology. But New Canoe was demoing that motor with that hardware, with that software that those two kids out of college created. They had to have been maybe 21, 22, and they were brilliant. And they had
Sitting on
come
a
up with,
beach now.
yeah, oh, they gotta be
Yeah,
making some, they had to had made some cash from that because it was, I mean, what they had made was brilliant. But New Canoe was the first brand to do that. So I have a ton of respect for them as a company and what they've done. So anything we've made for them, we've, to go on that boat, not for them personally. I'd love to work with Blake personally, but anything we've made for that brand, we've tried to be mindful of stuff they've already had. So
yeah.
we're not
Yeah,
recreating the wheel, but at the same
I was
time making
wondering
some
about that.
unique stuff. Yeah.
Like, not, you wanna make something and you wanna be cool with everybody, but not step on their toes or the products
Yeah.
that they're making,
Yeah. And two, and again, it doesn't do us any good, like, for us to create stuff just because someone else has already made it. Like, if we're gonna make it, and I know there might even be a few people that balk at that, but for us, if we're gonna make something, for example, our crate, right? There were already crates out on the market. We did not invent the crate. Yeah, Yak Attack had the black pack way, way long before I ever thought about having a crate. However, when we created our crate, we had a different mission with it because I had back surgery, and for me, I don't have the flexibility that some other people may have. I wasn't on a new canoe at the time because that's the only boat, not the only boat now, but that's the first boat that had the swivel seat where you could turn
Mhm,
your whole seat around because it was the first kayak that was stable enough to do that.
yeah,
And so if you could have a walk-in safe if you got a new canoe, right? Because you could turn around and access it. But on other kayaks, especially the ones that I was on at the time, I really didn't have that ability. I mean, I one of my first main kayaks I had was a Vibe Seaghost 130, so I couldn't turn my body around on that boat, and I didn't want to risk potentially flipping the boat just to try to get to my gear. And all these other crates had lids and also
Yeah,
they
you
have
like
latches.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
you have to like get it's hard to see what's in there without fumbling around or really getting back there or look at it.
Yeah, and
That's honestly why I love your crate the most because I can barely turn around. I can lift up one corner of
right.
the box, one of the straps off the four straps that hold the top down. I just
Yeah.
open up one and I've got all my labels on the left side so I can
Mhm.
lift up one, see exactly which one I need, and then pull it out without having to take any of the other straps off. I can just do one and grab it. And
Yeah,
I love that. I honestly do love that box, and I've had other ones.
yeah.
It's my favorite box for
You
sure.
know, and that's the thing, it's like, thank you for saying that, but what you just said is so key. You know, everything looks great on dry ground. You know, like and there's some other companies that have released some new crates this year or this past year in 22, and they look amazing. Aesthetically, they're killer. But this is what I say, everything looks great on dry ground. When you're on the water and you need to access your stuff, that's what I designed these products. I wanted our products to be easy to use. If it takes me more than 5 minutes to explain to you how to use our product, I did a horrible job. They should be so darn intuitive where and I've heard people have said this about our products, and I know it's going to sound arrogant, but they just say, look, we love your products because you get what we're trying to do out there on the water. And I'm just like, well, I'm trying to, when I'm out on the water, I'm trying to do the exact same thing you're doing. I'm trying to fish and make it an easy experience and not a hard one. And so what we try to do is create this stuff to where, yeah, it's easy to, this should be the easiest thing to be able to get your gear that you bring with you. You shouldn't have to pull your kayak over and get out of it to be able to change your bait, to be able to change a lure. You should be able to just to reach back, grab your gear. For me, I talked to when I was studying ergonomics, I was talking to a guy that designs products for the blind, and what and that kind of came up with the idea what I tell people about our crate is, you know, for me, I keep most of my hard baits, in my main storage area, and then in the dry pocket pouch that we have, the dry bag that's an actual cover. I
I
keep a
love that cover, by the way.
Oh,
That's
I
what I keep
appreciate it.
all my leader and my I keep
Yeah.
a few things in there.
e-
I wouldn't know what to do without that bag.
Exactly, like, I keep a lot of my plastics in that, like, a lot of times I'll take that off and bring that up front or up to my cockpit, and, I'll keep a lot of my stuff there. But that's my point, it's like, so what I did was I talked to a guy that designed products for the blind, and that's where I go, "Okay, cool." I know, like, in my first compartment, my first dividers, and everything's angled, right? So
Mhm.
everything's leaning towards you. In my first compartment, I have, like, my hard baits that's designed for shallow water, from 0 feet to 2 feet deep. And then in my middle ones, I have all my baits from 4 feet to 6 feet, and then in the farthest from me, I have my deep divers. And
Yeah.
so that way, when I reach back, I know exactly what case I'm grabbing. And so talking to people that design products for people who are impaired, that really helped me out a lot to come up with that thought process, and I share that a lot with people when I'm at shows, and it just that's why I think that crate has been so successful because we designed it to where it was one of the first crates that's actually ergonomically designed for you to easily reach straight back and grab your gear instead of having to cock your arm and turn your whole body around, which
Yeah.
is very difficult for me to do personally. So there's so it's stuff like that. So everything we make, we have a few different philosophies. One, does it make the experience easy and pleasurable to use? And two, can we add more than one function? For example, like, our flex rods, our horizontal rod stagers. It's like, yeah, you can store your rods, by you and access them quickly, but then we also put things in there like a paddle holder in the middle. So you can
Mhm.
put your paddle in the middle and then grab one of your rods to the side. So it's got two functions there. Our shallow stick holder, you can put the shallow stick through the hole, but you also have the ability to, there's a 2 shallow stick holders. You just put it right there, pop it right in, and then you have another area on it where you can install another item, whether it be a phone holder or a rod holder or something like that. So we try to give you more than just one function. Our cup holder XD, to be able to put your fish grips, be able to put your
Yeah.
pliers, be able to hang off your lures, use that thing as a bait caddy as much as you would a cup holder. And so I think people really appreciate that. And then sell it at a economical price. Like, now you're just getting value on value on value, and so that's what we try to do with our stuff. And I think, you know companies like New Canoe and companies like Hobie, they're starting to see that now. They're starting to see, like, what we bring to the table, so those users are coming to us when they first, we've had this happen several times lately where the customer just buys a New Canoe, and then they come to our site, and they literally buy, like, 8 of our products in one purchase. And to me, that's the biggest compliment we could ever be paid, because they're now, like, they're setting their boat up, and they're doing it with YakGadget in mind, and that's really killer. That's just, you know, that's what I really wanted this to be. This is that's a dream for me when I see that, because I go, okay, they get what we're trying to do. We're trying to make their life better. And with our underneath seat storage, the quad flex box that we now have,
Yeah.
that now fits all the New Canoes, and it fits underneath the Hobies. And now we also have the Duo that fits on the kayaks, like the
Okay.
Mokins,
Yeah.
like the Mokin 12s and the Mokin 10s for the feel free, and it also fits the Hobie Outback. Now people are in our Duo plate that also fits those boats. People are now starting to see that, okay, Yak Gadget's who we need to come to first, because we're making this stuff just for them in mind. We know those are, to be able to use stuff underneath your seat, to be able to use that space, to be able to use we have a universal seat bag. We were one of the first companies to have that.
Mhm. I got
Now,
2 of them.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. I mean, you're like one of the perfect, like, examples of who we make this stuff for. Um, and that's been probably the coolest thing for me, is to see that not only because we're not just making a bunch of stuff to make a bunch of stuff. Everything that we have released, there have been needs there, and now we have so much customer data. When we work these shows, when we all of our emails, people are telling us what they want us to make now. And if we get so many requests, then we're now faced with a decision. We better, like, look into this, because if I work a show and I got 50 people that come up to me asking about this one particular type of item, if I'm not making it, then someone else is going to. And so this gives me so much. Really, the customers give us so much great data now. It makes it even more meaningful, because now we're like, okay, our customers are telling us what some of their pain points are. Now I'm going to go out on the water, and I'm going to see if I can have the same kind of experience. So now when I make something, it's going to not only fill their need, but I know it's going to work, on the water. Because that's what I try to do with everything we do. If I make something, I go out on the water and experience it, because I want to make sure that we're not only listening to our customers, but we're giving them a solution that's going to last them for a long, long
I was gonna say, that might be, like, the one negative with your products, because
time.
I've got the box, like, I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm ever going it's built so sturdy. Maybe if I lost the top, I'd have to buy a new top, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine that box ever going bad, you know?
Yeah, that's a really funny point. So I've experienced this, and I've experienced this at certain shows that I've, like, been working for, like, the last 3 years. And we have a lot of customers that will come into our booth at these shows, and they'll go, "Well, I already own just about everything you make, and I don't really need
Uh,
anything else." And that really, like, we're like, okay, we're making our stuff, like, really good, apparently, because we're not having to replace it. So that now drives us too. It's like, okay, there's got to be little things that we can make, or there's got to be this or that, to continue to get some of those, continue to get some of those, added purchases, from the same
yeah.
customers that have been buying our stuff. But you make a really good point. But I'll be honest with you too. I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the
Yeah.
fact that, okay, if you buy our stuff and you bought it 2 years ago and you're still using it and you're still enjoying it, that means we made a dang good product. And let me tell you what, that to me, that matters more than anything because I used to over design, but now I don't over design anymore. What we do now is we just go, okay, whatever we make, we want to make it simple, but let's make it like with the best like type of material, the thickest we can get away with, afford to, when I mean by get away with, to make it as thick as we can afford to make it and still keep that price point where it needs to be. Like we just think a lot differently than we did like 4 years ago, of course, as you would. However, I think now what we're looking at, with some of the stuff we're making is like, okay, how can we, continue to make that same quality of stuff, but even go into different realms like plastic injected molding, um, thermoforming, not just CNCing anymore. Like, so we're starting to make that evolution now, and
Well,
into new stuff that we're looking at, but we're using that same mentality of, okay, can I throw this thing across the warehouse like I used to? Like when I first made that crate, I took it and literally threw it against a brick wall in our warehouse, and that thing did not break. And
good.
I had a one quick story on that crate. One guy was driving with it. He said it blew off of his boat. He didn't tie it down right or something. And he looked in the rear view. Oh, I know who it was. It's Jimmy McClurkin, who's on our pro team. And he said he was driving down the road. He was going, he fishes all these tournaments all over the country, and he's, in the 10 every year, just about in the last 2 or 3 years, been in the top 10 with KBF and all that. Well, he's driving down the road and he looks back and he sees that come off of his old town. And he just sees that thing in the air and just starts skipping on the highway. And he's like, "Oh, dude, that thing is done, but I got a bunch of gear. Let me see if I can try to save something, salvage." So he ends up getting off the next exit, coming back around to it. And when he pulled off and he got it, the thing was still intact. And it had like a little chip on it, but hardly any damage at all. And he was like, he was like, I gotta call JT and let him know this. And so that just warmed my heart because I was like,
Yeah.
okay, we make a tough ass product. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. Like but that came from all that warehouse testing of me literally spiking that thing like a football on a concrete floor and seeing if I could bust it. I mean, that's what we did with our pod mounts. When we made the pod mount for Bonafide, I got
Yeah.
in a Bonafide SS 107 and literally went where I knew all the stumps were. I remember being at the Pal Sports Retailer show, um, with a feel free boat, and I literally ran into a concrete wall because where we were at the Olympic Training Center for whitewater, in Oklahoma City, and they had all that stuff turned off. Of course, for us, they turned it on later for the whitewater guys, but for us, they had it off. But I knew where the concrete walls were that were like 6 inches under the boat. All right, I'm gonna hit this thing going, almost 4 miles an hour. Let's see what happens. So I do that type of stuff. I try to touchdown spike all of our stuff, and I took our flex rods and I would throw them. I threw them outside like on the asphalt, and I actually drove our truck over. I drove my truck over a couple of products before, see if I get the split. And so I'm really big on that because I come from my dad was in construction, and he would always tell me, you got one chance to build it the right way, and so that's what we try to do, with all of our stuff. But no, when he told me that story when that thing went airborne on the highway, him going 75 miles an hour, and that thing didn't break, including the rod tubes, I was pretty impressed by that.
Heck yeah. What's your most successful product?
Well, I think now
I
it
guess that would depend on like quantity or sales, but what do you feel is your most successful product?
well, I that's a hard one, because I think our track mounted accessories as a whole have been some of our most successful products. Just everything we make, just because, just
Everybody can use them, right?
yeah, I think I think what I've started to realize is there's a reason why a lot of companies don't do a lot of kayak specific products, because if you make a universal product or a product that can go on any gear track or a product that can go on, that can go underneath all these different seats or a, a, a seat bag that can fit every kayak seat, there the number of sales that you're going to get off a product like that versus a kayak specific product, you can't even compare it, right?
Yeah.
So for us, the track mounted accessories, when we really delved into that world and we started making our own paddle holders, when we started making our own, um, you know, the Easy Grip series, the XDs, and with the two paddle holders on it, we started making that different stuff. It really did set us in a different light with our customer base, and then we started, selling that stuff on Amazon, and we started seeing that stuff really take off on Amazon. So for us, it really, I think lately it's been a big success for us, and I think um, our storage products, we've had those before we had the track mounted stuff. And I think, those two things probably sell the most for us, in terms of all of those products.
Yeah.
And because they're pretty close, in terms of sales results, the products that I'm the most proud of right now is, the Flex Rod series has been great because I gave that a whole refresh at the end of last season. We now have 6 different types of flex rods that we sell. We don't just
Yeah.
sell the 2 rod and the paddle holder anymore. We sell a 3 rod version, a 4 rod version. We sell 2 rods and a catch board holder, or bump board holder, I should say. We sell a version that's our micro series, which allows you to take those out on the smaller kayaks that you're mainly paddling, like some of the Jacksons, the Crescents, the new Light Tackle 2, which is Boss. I love that kayak. The CK1, and also the Sholey. The Flex Rod Micros has been hugely successful for those boats. Um, so we've really taken that one product, and now we've made, like I said, 6 to 7 different versions of that product just because of the demand from, our customer base. Um, and, you know, again, I just put it up there with all of our track mounted accessories. I really like our rod, not our rod, our grip lift, which we made recently for we sell our paddle holder, but we know that Yak Attack has the number one paddle holder in the game with the rotor grip. However, a lot of customers have emailed me over the years to ask, hey, can you make something to lift that up? Because we feel like it sits too close to the kayak and our paddle blade knocks it out of the holder sometimes,
Yeah.
or if we want to hold a net. And so we made a little product that pairs perfectly with a Yak Attack product, which, you know, I have a few rotor grips. I before I made my own, I was
Yeah.
buying theirs. They were the only ones really making a good one.
I have a
So
couple I've had forever. If I lost them, I would buy a different one. But
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, and that's the thing, it's like, we knew that, so we were like, "Hey, let's make a product that people have been asking for, and let's make it, so the people that already have invested in that, they don't have to we're not gonna expect them to, get rid of theirs and buy our paddle holder, but, if they don't unless they want to, but if they don't want to, cool, they could buy the grip lift, which will lift that rotor grip up by almost 3 inches, and then you can actually turn it sideways as well and use it that way, which will lift it up, a little bit over 2 inches. So that gives you a really new lease on that product, and it allows you to use that product in a different way, whether you want to hold your net, whether you want to, just set your paddle higher up off the kayak. So we a lot of those products they're starting to become successful for us too, because people are seeing our ability to, again, look at certain niches within the market and create solutions, because there's always gaps.
Yeah.
There's always opportunities in all of this stuff, and we're starting to, get into other types of watercraft, not just kayaks as well. We're starting to create some of these solutions for some of these other products too. So it's an exciting time for us.
Is there a product that you made that you thought was going to do really well, but turned out to be a dud? Maybe it didn't. So, and maybe you didn't sell as many as what you thought.
Well, that's the funny thing about it. It's like, um, as far as duds, we haven't really made a complete dud because they've always we sell it. Now we may not
Yeah.
sell it. I've sold everything we've ever made. But there are certain things that didn't sell quite as well. One product that I've had an interesting history with, and it's really funny, is our quick view mirror. And
I was wondering if that quick view mirror ever did any good.
you know
I
what's
just I couldn't see, maybe if I'm like a shotgun start now, like on Saturday morning it was a
yeah,
shotgun where everybody left at once. I'm trying to
yeah.
leave everybody. Like I could see the guy. He's getting close to me.
Yeah. Well, so the funny thing about that mirror, when I first came out with it, I caught so much hell about it, from the hardcore tournament guys. You
Yeah.
know who I didn't catch hell from was the recreational people. Um, they absolutely loved it. I got so sick of the negativity that I received from the fishing community about it at first, that I had brought it out. I had sold quite a few of them, and then I just retired it because I was like, whatever, and then I started getting emails when I when I canceled it, and I had a lot of recreation kayakers, and then I also had some fishermen too. Like, "Are you gonna bring it back? Please tell me you're gonna bring it back. We really like this product," and I didn't expect that, and so I actually brought it back. We now have the new version, the Quick View 2.0 out there. I've been selling them at shows, but I've had people give me some guff too, and then I explain the story. They go, "Well, why did you make it?" And I said,
Right.
"Well, here's the main reason why I made it. I have a niece and a nephew who I've taken out multiple nieces and nephews throughout my years, but I have a niece and nephew in particular who absolutely love going out with me. And I've taught they're young, but they can handle their own boats. So some of my smaller kayaks I bring those out for them, and I've taught them how to paddle quite well to the point where I can't hear them. So if I get in front of them,
Yeah.
I literally started turning my kayak all the way around to make sure they're okay, that they didn't go over or fall over or anything. Because one of them was only like 8 years old or 7 and had their own kayak, right? And a lot of people would think maybe that's too young, but they did great. So I would have to turn my boat, just making sure they're okay, and they would paddle like whisper quiet, not splashing water or anything, like, because I just taught them how to really, sneak up on fish, and they just wanted to be like little water ninjas, and they were. And so I turned my boat around eight times, 10 times during the trip just to check on them. And then when I made a prototype of the mirror and I put it on there, I was like, "Well, how about that? I don't have to turn my body or turn my kayak around. I can see them." And, they'd even wave at me because they know I'd see them in the mirror. And then I got to thinking, I was like, "Okay, there's got to be something to that, especially to the guys that also have their kids in the kayak with them or
Yeah.
sit behind them in their storage wheel in the back. You could look back and see your kid and make sure that they're safe." So when I started saying that at the shows, the hardcore guys that were laughing about it, they stopped laughing because
Oh,
they
it's for
all
the kids.
they all got kids, man.
Yeah.
They all got So then I start talking about, well, I had another experience. I had it on my Bonafide 107 when I was testing a motor, and I heard this really like weird noise, and I looked in my mirror, and there was a really fast boat. It wasn't a bass boat. It wasn't a ski boat. It was like some kind of a custom boat with like a crazy inboard motor in it, and it was heading right towards me, and I saw it, and I was able to get my boat out of the way in time to not get literally sawed in half. And then I was in another situation where I was backing up and I saw in the mirror a bunch of trees behind me, and I was going, "You know what? No matter what someone thinks of this product, it's allowing you to see things that you couldn't see before without having to turn your body. Now, look, if you're young and flexible and limber and you can turn around, you've got that flexibility, it's all good. But if you're like me, who I'll be 50 next week and I've
Hey,
had back surgery.
happy early birthday.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, and I'm not, I'm kind of a bigger guy. I'm about 230, about 235 right now. But a little bit bigger of a fella, I don't have that flexibility to turn my body around and see all this stuff. And what's funny about kayaks is they're one of the few vessels out there on the water that doesn't have a mirror that you can drive. You got to think about that.
True.
If you get on anything road related, you got to have mirrors.
Yeah.
So for me, that product, not necessarily a dud, but it's had a slow burn, and I discontinued it because of the slow burn, and then when I found another source of a mirror that I really liked and I could, create the right base for it, I brought it back, and now people are starting to buy it, and you know, at the Columbus, Ohio show, I sold out of them. So it was crazy. It's like one of those unexpected things where you look at it and you go, "Well, it is a highly functional thing, but it's not something that people think about a lot, especially guys that are experienced kayak fishermen."
Yeah.
They certainly don't. I've had people go, "Come on, man, are you serious about that?" And I'm like, "Hey, it's not for, we give our company our company's purpose is to give everyone different options to customize a boat the way that they want to. And you may not want that product, but you'll use our other stuff. But
Yeah.
there's rec kayakers. They see that mirror and they like to go out with kids or friends. They buy it, like one guy bought it. He bought like four of them. He bought them for each member of his family that goes out with them. So it's one of those things where I think that's probably been the closest thing that I thought that was just gonna be a dud, that I thought was a good idea, but not everyone accept it right away, but now it has a slow burn, and it's kinda coming back around,
Hmm.
which is kinda fun.
I like it. So, because you make all the parts in house, are they? I with any business, inventory is one of your biggest costs. How are you? Are you making it all on demand, or is it kind of in between? Like you might have one or two on the shelf, and you just replenish it. I guess is it
Yeah.
like min maxes, or how are you doing? How are you doing your inventory like that?
Yeah, so I think with COVID and with everything that's happened with supply chain and everything that everyone's been experiencing, not just me, but and we've been fortunate with our supply chains a lot more than some other people in the industry. I think we've managed it is I go back to the numbers and we look at our track mounted accessories that sell really, really good. We just make those in mass quantities because we know we're going to sell them.
So
Like
like a big run of them.
yeah, yeah, like if
Okay.
like last week, we were running low we were running low on some different types of flex rods, so yeah, ran out a couple hundred, of different versions, and because we know certain products are gonna move, and, what's funny is like our quad box, like the quad box the hard one that you have under your Hobie seat,
Hmm.
like, we ran a bunch of those last week because we've been selling them, and so we were like, "Let's run out 30 or 40 of these bad boys," and, so there's certain products that we make that we know we need to have in a larger volume. Our cup holders, all of our trap mount accessories, we make those in larger quantities because we sell those. The the crates, like the crates will do a certain run of those. But then there's other things like some of our motor mounts, say for like a big fish 120, we might
Yeah.
have like one or two of those, right? Um, or but if it's like our regular standard MK motor mount, we'll make a run of those. We'll have probably 25, 30 of those on hand at any time. The Vibe rear motor mounts for like the Sea Ghosts and stuff, which we still sell a lot of those. It's crazy.
Mhm.
Um,
The
but
pod deal too, right?
yeah, the pods. Yeah, the pod thing, like the pod motoring is still so popular because it's just I think a lot of people just want simplicity. Not everyone's a tournament fisher, but they
Yeah.
still want the ability to get out there and go longer distances, but they want a motor that they can drop in and take out. We've had a little, I won't say controversy, but we've definitely had some things, like with the Bonafide pod, some folks have said, hey, this could void the warranty of a kayak or whatever. And we've had to deal with that where, and I've talked to some of the people over at Bonafide,
The motors aren't that powerful that they're going.
no,
Yeah.
we've never. Let's put it this way: for Bonafide alone, we have sold over 500 of those pod mounts. We have not had one warranty issue come from those. Now, I'm not saying it could never happen, and of course, I'm knocking on some wood right here.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, we designed that product, I think, well enough to where, and I tested it. I hit stumps. I beached it. I slammed the motor into the mud, with under a foot of water, uh, purposely trying to damage the kayak. Like I was prepared to sink my kayak to make sure it's safe, and never had any abrasions in that area. That's actually a lot tougher of an area that people realize. I've seen all these boats split, cut, like damaged boats that need to be sawed. I've seen a lot of these boats sawed in half. I could tell you all the kayaks and the different thicknesses and thinnesses of certain areas on boats. But like
Yeah.
example for Bonafide, that boat is the SS 127, the SS 107, and now the RVR. Those are such well-made kayaks that those areas are actually pretty darn tough.
I
Uh,
really went one. I had a 127 whenever they first came out. I really thought the plastic is kind of soft, out of all the kayaks I've had, they probably have what I thought was like the highest quality plastic out of any other. I'm not trying to, I know you can't talk about other brands, but to me,
oh,
I thought that was like the best plastic out of any kayak I've ever had.
I'm serious, man.
Yeah,
Very well made. Like
yeah,
like I said, I've seen that boat cut in half, and I've seen how it is very even, very consistently molded. A lot of the boats are, of course. Like I've seen Jacksons too. I mean, Jacksons are phenomenally made too. I mean, most of these brands are. I mean, they all have a great standard. But that boat, like for people, like when people were saying on the message group or Facebook groups about our pod potentially voiding a warranty. But what a lot of people didn't understand is every aftermarket product that you put on your kayak can potentially will potentially void your warranty, any motor mount, because none of those kayaks were designed to have motors specifically. They can handle them, but they're not part of the. It's not part of the. If you put a motor on the back of your kayak, especially a motor that wasn't rated, or you just put a motor on the back of your kayak, and there's no mount that they sell for that, which means an aftermarket company had to make one. Well, what that means is that that company never designed that boat to be used that way. So yeah, you're potentially voiding your warranty by any motor that you put on your kayak. However, companies like ours are experienced, and we know what we're making. So we're not just making it because we think, oh, this person's going to buy it and they can just slap it on there. No, we tested the shit out of this product, and we know if we know it's gonna work well in the pod, or we know it's gonna work well in the rear, or on the bow. Like, I don't make bow moats per se, but there's other companies that do, and they've done their homework too. So what but those products technically can void the warranty of your kayak. So everyone that you put any motor you put on your kayak could potentially void the warranty. However, it very rarely happens because again, we all make really good products that make sure that we take the kayaks and the kayaker safety to heart. I gotta sleep at night. I'm not gonna sell
yeah.
anything that I know is not gonna work and work really well. And we like I said, out of all of the pod motors that we've sold, and then feel free, um, same thing, with the feel free pods. We've sold as probably more of them than we've sold for Bonafide, and yeah, we've never had an issue whatsoever with those. Thankfully, I mean, but we also designed them in such a way where we wanted to make sure that we considered that beyond everything. So, but
Spiking in the office.
well, you know what it is, man. It's like it's really none of this is negative. I think what it is that you know, I think owners want to know what they're getting into when they buy a certain product. And for me, we just want to do everything we can to reassure that whatever we make, yeah, we're testing it. We're touchdown spiking it. We're trying to wreck our kayak out on the water. We're trying to do these things. And if we abuse something and it still holds up and it's still working, then that's going to be a real good product for you 99.9% of the time. And so the safety of our users is primary, and the bottom line for us is we don't want to just make stuff to sell. We want to make stuff that you can use and use for a long time and have a high quality product. I care more about that than how much money I make. Believe me, if I was just getting this industry to make money, I wouldn't get into this industry. This is a labor of love, man. This is not people think, oh, you got $1 million idea. Yeah, no. Uh, it's a lot more blood sacrifice than it is pay. Um,
Yeah.
but we do that. All of us in the industry, we do it because we love what we do, and that's more important to me than trying to make a buck. Um, so the products that we make, we like I said before, but these issues are all real because and we pay attention to this stuff and it matters to us when we hear it. And it's not slander or anything like that. I think what it is just to let people inform people like, look, when you put a bow mount motor on a kayak that only weighs 70 something pounds and your motor that you're putting on the front weighs 60 something pounds with the battery, or without the battery, and
Yeah.
then you add the battery to that, you gotta know what could potentially happen on that boat. But it's not slandering the product or the kayak. It's letting people know you want to make sure you put that motor I mean, that motor, when you put it in the front, you wanna make sure you put a battery in the back to equal the weight, or and you wanna pay attention, like, when you stand up on that boat to fish from it, that if you shift your weight in the front, that bow's already got another 60 pounds already on it, so you wanna pay attention to things like that. That's all I think anyone in the industry is ever saying. Now like I said, we don't make bow mounts per se, but that's an example of the care that everyone in the community has. And I think that's one thing that's awesome about this industry is we have such a very passionate community. And I think people are just looking for the best products. And so that's what we try to give them.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to end it. Man, I appreciate you being on. Thank you for your time. And where can everybody go to find out more about YakGadget products?
Well, we've got our main website, which is yakgadget.com, YakGadget.com. You can reach us on Instagram. We're YakGadget on Instagram. Um, our YouTube channel, I'm YakGadget JT on there. And we got some exciting things that we're trying to get off the ground with our YouTube channel. We're trying to do a lot more video content this year, and I'm trying to get into just doing some really simple rigging videos to really show you guys how I rig kayaks and some of the mindset that I put behind it and some of the tips and tricks beyond just our products, other products that you could also buy out there that you can help simply rig your kayaks. If you have to drill into your boat, the best way to do that. If you want to add a motor mount for a kayak that doesn't have inserts or anything like that, we've got some tips and tricks for that. So I'm really looking to do that on our Facebook page. We've got our Yak Gadget site. We have our Yak Gadgets owners group, and we also have, of course, I'm John Thomas. You can find me as well. So when I do a post, I basically simultaneously post it to all those other YakGadget based groups. So you can find us on all those different social media channels.
Yeah, and you can see us both at the Alabama Fishing Show on, was it March 11th? Is that when it is?
I think it's like the 10th, 11th, and 12th, I
Yeah.
think. It's that weekend of the 10th, 11th, and 12th. I think those are the dates. I'm really excited about that show. The folks that put that show on is from East Tennessee Fishing Show, so they do a really bang up job. And from what I've seen so far, it's going to be right on the Coosa River.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
gonna, I think they're gonna have a demo ramp there too. I think they're actually gonna have I think they're trying to do some stuff by the water, if I'm not mistaken, if it's not gonna be too cold. I don't think it will. I think it'll be in the 60s or whatever.
It's in the 80, like 80 today.
Well, I know,
Yeah,
that's what's crazy. Who knows
I
what it's
know.
gonna be by, but I'm excited about that show. I really am, and I love the fact that Alabama now has a show like that, because they're gonna have, um, a really, big time, kayak dealer there, plus me, and then all the baits, tackle, all different boat companies. I mean, they do a great job of bringing a lot of different people to the table with that show. It's a nice, well-rounded show and a good emphasis on small watercraft, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I know from the kayak side, myself and Coley McGowan are doing seminars. I'll be there on Sunday. And then there's also, I mean, you have with Bucks Island, you have Matt Heron and Wes Logan and some other boat pros that'll be there if you want to hear them speak as well. So, like always, appreciate y'all listening. John, thanks again for being on. Go check them out. They have absolutely some of the best products on the market, and my kayak would not be the same without them. So we'll see y'all again next week, and be safe out on the water. Thank you.